guys, it is Friday here, and I wanted to share with you a little bit of inspiration that I've had this week. And you might think, Ryan, where do you go for inspiration? Aha, my students. This week I have listened to my students. They've composed incredible things. I told almost all of my students this semester, I want you to compose something. I want you to arrange something. I want you to write a song. And a few of the students have already come up with some really insightful and deep and I think inventive things. Just a sampling of a few of them. One girl is trying these triads or these chords with her left hand, and they're in first inversion. So what that means is if you play like D, F, A for a D minor triad, to invert it is to flip it upside down. So instead of D being to the left, it's going to be to the right now. So you have F, A, D. And she's doing right hand stuff, and the left hand will do this kind of pattern. Then she moves over to a different chord with the same shape of her hand, but different harmonies. And because they have inversions, instead of what we call root position, there's a different sort of effect that is created. And here's sort of what one of her pieces sounds like. Something like that. I think it's really refreshing sounding, and I want to try to use some inverted chords in my writing for my next couple of projects. Another student who isn't very advanced musically, we might say, because she's still playing simple pieces, she came into her lesson this week and she started to play with both hands at the same time, and she was doing what I thought were incorrect rhythms until I heard a couple of measures, and I realized she was writing with syncopated rhythms. Something kind of like this. Something like that, with some ties and some dotted notes. And then she went into another texture, which was sort of similar to this, the flat side, like if you're in D major, you would have F sharp and C sharp, but by having this C natural, I don't know how she thought of this idea. She's just a little girl, right? Well, kids are incredible. They are so smart, we don't give them enough credit. This girl comes in, plays an F sharp, because she had learned the D major pentascale, and we sometimes improvise by doing D major pentascale and then C major pentascale, like or, and going back and forth between them. So maybe that's where she thought of the idea. But I thought it was really advanced of her, and it was instructive to me to see as her teacher that she's capable of so much, and I shouldn't let whatever level of whatever book she's in decide what I think her potential might be at this moment. So she's doing this like unison melody, and then and I was impressed, I have to say. I just sat back in my chair and I thought, shame on you, Ryan, for putting these psychological limits on your students when obviously they can achieve so much more. Another student who inspired me this week, he was writing with just broken triads. And we haven't started writing traditional music notation, so I just had him write the chord name, which in this case was a C chord, or we moved over to E, and And I didn't even bother telling him about E minor and E major and all that. We just did white keys. And he was doing broken and blocked triads, kind of like this. And I'm a pretty big fan of the major 7th chord. It's just so good. And so he was doing that, and I was like, right on, kid, major 7th. And he went a step further. I was like, yeah, okay, we're getting in the 9th in here. He moved his hand over to G, and we have a nice little, neatly packaged 4-measure phrase, and a half cadence at the end. I thought, this is perfect. This kid gets it. I said, why don't you try doing the right hand blocked and the left hand broken? So he was doing this, and then he was like, and then he started doing different triads of different qualities at the same time. And he created some far out harmonies. He was doing polychords, like this chord and then. And my first thought as a classical musician was, oh, he's playing all these dissonances, he doesn't understand. And my second thought was, doesn't matter, he's making cool sounds. And I imagine that my friend Claude, most people call him Debussy, I call him Claude. And I think we would have been friends if we had been alive at the same time. Claude, he goes to harmony class, he's like, this chord can go to this chord, can go to this chord, because it sounds good. And my student was doing that kind of thing as well. So, just to recap, if you are a teacher, I would encourage you to give your students an opportunity to compose, or arrange music, or write their own songs, and I bet you'll be surprised at what they come up with. They could use parallel motion. They could use triads and pentascales. They could use inverted chords. And I think that makes some really cool stuff. For all of you students out there, this is my encouragement to you to try something. If you don't know what to do, you have writer's block, then I would say find the simplest piano piece that you can and sort of copy it. But change a couple of notes and maybe end on a different note. So if the piece is like this, maybe you could do something like that. You could take the rhythm values, quarter notes, quarter notes, quarter notes, and just play different keys for quarter notes. I do that all the time. I take the rhythm of something that sounds good, like this. I'm like, oh, that would sound amazing if you just did. Whatever. Or I would take the notes that someone else wrote, and maybe I'll change the rhythm values. That's kind of musical heresy, but maybe it gives you an idea of what can be done with just a few musical ingredients. Thank you so much for watching. This is the channel of Ryan Blakemore, the pianist. Have a good night.